inform, and highlight change makers in Africa. And today we have a very learned friend, for lack of a better word. And I would like you, sir, to actually just introduce yourself. I think it's important for people to just get to know who you are, what you do, and what you believe in. I think now is a good time, unlike any other, for us to hear from you. Tafadhali, continue.
Thank you for having me, my good friend. It feels good to be here. My name is Victor Baba Emmanuel Aligo, and I am a community lawyer, mediator, and most importantly, I am the head of Men's Ministry at Reconciliation Center. We are an integrated community of young men and women in active service to God, and we believe in the transformational abilities and properties of God to change the destiny of people and the destiny of a nation and the destiny of a continent.
Thank you very much, Victor. Just to understand well and better of what you do and who you are and what you do, what's your exact position, professional position?
My professional position is that of a lawyer come mediator.
Hmm.
Much of what I
And
do,
what? Sorry,
sorry,
continue.
much of what I do revolves around community empowerment and community equipping. Um,
Hmm.
in that regard, I am the founder of Community Legal Service, Self-Sufficient Community Paralegal Center, and we try to bridge the gap between we try to bridge the gap of access to justice, which is a fundamental, a constitutional right that every Kenyan and every resident in Kenya must enjoy.
Interesting, interesting. But tell us more about your mediation work, especially. You're a lawyer and mediator at the same time. Is that does that mean accredited mediator?
Yes, I am an accredited mediator courtesy of MTI East Africa. MTI is Mediation Training Institute, which has its parent company in the United States.
Okay. How long have you been a mediator?
Well, I have been a mediator for the last 4 years, rather a
4 years.
professional mediator for the last 4 years.
What about a lawyer?
I have been a lawyer for the last 5 years.
Oh, interesting. Why? Why
Yeah.
did you seek to go into the professional angle of law or legal matters?
Well, growing up, my environment was so engulfed with, legal challenges, injustices, and so on and so forth. Personally, I have been a victim of what I would call injustices, growing up, and 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 as I went to school, I always, looked up and admired, lawyers because of some of the amazing things that they can do to a society. Historically speaking, so many men that have, transformed the world are lawyers. When you speak of Nelson Mandela was a great lawyer. Obama again was a great lawyer, and
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi was a great lawyer. So lawyers have a historical legacy of being, men that can bring about um, dramatic and very impactful change to the society. So growing up, I really looked up to these strong men and women, who had a professional background in law. So law becomes a good platform to demonstrate a change in leadership to the world.
Okay, tell us more about your professional work. Like why did you even fall into that? Why did you decide to get into law? You've talked about some injustices that you went through. Please tell us more about that.
Well, growing up, my dad had to be, my dad had to flee the country because of his religious affiliation. And fleeing your nation is not something that is easy, because at some point, you will lose contact with people that are important in your life. You get to lose um, some of your friends, and even, community, a sense of community. So I remember growing up, um, when we fled, from my home country, which is South Sudan, to Kenya. I remember, we had to lose contact, with our relatives, our friends, and even a sense of community. And to me, I felt that was not fair. Um, and I figured out that I took I one of the things that I've learned from that is the power for constructive anger rather than destructive anger, because a destructive anger destroys you as a person, and it destroys people that surround you and so on. So from that I picked the lesson of constructive anger, the ability to turn your frustration, disappointments, and anger to fuel good in the society. So I believe that anger can be a good, it can be a force for good in the society.
Good stuff. Tell us more. Somebody's actually already asking. The gentleman is not from Kenya. I thought he was Kenyan.
Wow.
That's a good. Please tell us.
Well, I think I'm a honorary Kenyan.
I would know. Please tell us more about your background, where you came from, the country that you are in, before you actually came to Kenya.
Well, my country of origin is South Sudan. I was born
Mhm.
in Juba. That's in central Equatoria. The current capital city and commerce center of South Sudan.
Okay. Why did you get out of Sudan? That's what you're saying. You're actually calling it South Sudan. Why did you get out of there?
Well, then it was Sudan, but now because of the events that transpired in 2011, it's now South Sudan. We had to flee our country uh, because of the fact that my dad was being persecuted on grounds of his religion.
Okay. Grounds of his religion. What religion was that, if I may ask?
Um, my dad was a practitioner of Christianity, and back then, um, Sudan was, a predominantly Muslim practicing a country or nation, if you wish, and therefore Christians, would get the wrong end of the stick. Once in a while, because of your religion, you will get into trouble.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now that you've actually talked about religious persecution, how exactly can that also be solved among nations within Africa? Somebody's actually asking that.
Wow. Um, I think mediation, dialogue, and tolerance are good platforms, to begin the conversation on unifying people. One thing that I've come to understand with the human psychology is that we will spend so much energy um, we will spend so much energy into our differences rather into things that we have a common in nature. For instance, you put a man and a woman in the room. The next thing that races to their mind is their differences, in terms of their gender or sexes. Yeah, you put a
Hmm.
Christian and a Muslim in the same room. The first thing that the first thing that pops into their mind is their differences. So it's a human attribute that I feel it's normal, but then um, I think we have to search deep into ourselves and begin to see the common things that we share as human beings. For instance, before I'm a Christian, I'm a human being. Before I'm a
Yes,
man, before I'm a lawyer, you see, I am a human being. Or before I am a man, I'm a human being.
yes,
Yeah.
very much so. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Now tell us about your transition into Kenya. How do you find Kenya? How is it for you? Why are you still in Kenya? I'm sure you can be moving around because you're an African in full reality. Why are you in Kenya, and what's your plan about working within the country or the region, better yet?
Um, Kenya is a beautiful place. I know that has been said. I enjoy, the different culture, traditions of the people. And my transition here has been relatively easy because I came here as a small child, and we went to, great schools and so on and so forth. One of the things that I've greatly picked from this nation is, um, the Pan African culture that is in this place. Kenyans have this remarkable way of making you feel at home and so on and so forth. And I feel that Kenya has become my home away from home, or a second home, if you like.
Okay, great. Now tell us, just top of your mind, which has been, somebody's actually asking, which has been your greatest book so far?
Wow.
Or rather, what are you reading at the moment?
Wow. That's really a good question. I feel that my favorite book has got to be the Bible. The Bible is such a rich literature that you can borrow lessons from, that you can influence your life and inform, your perspective and so on and so forth. I have this unique way of looking into the Bible. The Bible, one is it can be a good handbook, on philosophy. It can be a good companion book on success, relationship, and so on and so forth. My current book would be strategic planning.
Strategic planning. So also somebody is actually asking, please mention a few impact highlights of your work, specifically to, I think, mediation and law, or better yet, any other work that you're doing. I would also like to hear more about that. So please tell us a bit more about your work and the impact highlights that you've achieved so far, so that we know what you're doing within the continent or even without the continent.
Wow. As a man who has different hats and capacities, I'll just begin by explaining, what I do in my capacity as a professional lawyer and a mediator. At community legal services, we afford legal services, mediation to be specific, at no cost whatsoever. The main constituents or beneficiaries of our services are, refugees, and of course, underserved communities. A majority of these people, as you will know, come from a low socioeconomic backgrounds, and therefore, at times, um, affording a legal practitioner is on the higher side. And in that regard, what we do is um, offer mediation as a better alternative to litigation, which involves or encompasses, going to courts back.
Okay. Curious, how exactly do you keep this sustainable? Like, if you're doing it for, I'm assuming it's merely pro bono, right? How
Well,
do you, sorry?
well, yes, we do pro bono, but pro bono does not mean necessarily free, because we have partners that sustain us. That one way
Okay.
and or another, they make their inputs, and through that
Mhm.
input, we are able to make sustainable. Able to make sustainable, a transformation in the society that I find myself within.
Ah, interesting. So actually, somebody then is asking, how exactly do you keep this sustainable apart from partners? And if I needed you to come to my community, how do I do that? Unfortunately, they haven't said where their community is at. So I guess this is a general question.
Wow, that's pretty a good question. I believe in the idea that I go wherever my skills are needed.
Where your skills are needed, and
Very
where
true.
would that be? And is this skills in regard to matters legal, mediation, or ministry work? Because you've actually talked about being part of ministry work.
I think um, my professional, background is somewhat informed, with the gospel, because in the gospel, we are called to go into the ends of the world. So I am to take my ideas, skill sets, thoughts, and abilities to wherever they are needed. That's the Great
Oh,
Commission, So my professional background is somewhat intertwined, with the great mandate in the Scripture that every believer has been bestowed upon.
good stuff. Again, your impact works. Please mention a few of us. Please mention a few of them for us. Sorry.
I'm affiliated to a number of organizations, both both for profit and not for profit. From a not for profit perspective, I do mediate for feeder as well, and through feeder, I have mediated a number of disputes where we have resolved families that were previously dysfunctional. So through the gift of mediation, we have restored relationships and families that were rendered dysfunctional by conflict. At a community level, I have mediated over 100 disputes. At a family level, but as well at a community level, where um, one member of the community is in conflict with another member of the community. So in
Mhm.
that regard, we have um, we have brought about a paradigm shift because of the practice of mediation.
Interesting. Now, in regard to your work also, which is the greatest um, impact highlight that you can actually mention, and why do you think your work is relevant in Africa? Because you are working in Africa, why do you think it's so relevant in Africa?
I'll take you to Principle 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which
Mhm.
espouses, access to justice, peace, and coexistence, and so on and so forth. So
Mhm.
our fundamental reference, goes back to the very essence of the Sustainable Development Goal. We are living in times where development, or rather peace, is a component of development. Peace is development, and development is peace. So at Community Legal Services, we are trying to play our part
Mhm.
insofar as implementing the sustainable development goals. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that a community that is at conflict with itself cannot fully actualize its potential, and therefore, in that regard, as an entity, or as an organization that avails a mediation and, of course, other alternative dispute resolution mechanisms such as negotiation, we play a fundamental, a cardinal role in building our communities. And I think that our communities are the next frontiers of change.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
How exactly are you empowering others to emulate your work, whichever this work may be it in law, be it in ministry at church, be it at the legal matters, be it actually mediation by itself? How exactly are you um, inspiring and working with others to actually emulate you?
I think you, Wahiga, that's a good question. It's a question that is ageless. It has no time, and so on and so forth. I do believe that I am a dwarf standing on the shoulders of giants, and um, that is a great tradition that I try as much as possible to keep. And in that regard, I try to be a platform that other people can as well become dwarfs that stand on the shoulders of giants, so that they can see further, and so on and so forth. I do believe that a part of success is succession, and succession encompasses training the next generation of leaders. In my capacity as a religious leader and a community leader, I strive as much as possible to train, equip, and transform the next generation of leaders. And there are a number of frontiers that I strive to do that. From a church perspective, we run an empowerment program where we are building capacity into young people to strive for leadership, and that leadership is not such um, it's not something that it's out of their reach or control, and so on and so forth. So at church, we're running this program on empowerment, just to build capacity, equip young people into leadership. In At my individual level, I run a number of um, platforms, where I try to train and pass and transmit, some of the great values that I have picked from men and women who have gone before me. So in that
Mhm.
regard, we try to inculcate leadership skills into young people. I'm one of the guys who believes that you don't run a business on profits, or you don't run a nation, on resources, on natural resources. You run a nation or a business based on leadership and managerial skills. And that's one thing that I believe that, as a generation, we can deploy and employ to change, the destiny of Africa. I'm on record of saying that, the story of Africa has not been told to the end. And therefore,
Yes.
as young people, we need to rise up to the occasion and tell or retell the story of Africa to the end. And one platform that we can use to do this has got to be our leadership.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for that. Who are the greatest beneficiaries of your work, actually?
At a community level, the refugee constituency are the most beneficiaries of my work. And I can justify or validate that um, on a number of levels. One, I'm a refugee, and therefore I feel a deep connection with the refugee constituency. I know I resonate with some of their struggles, and that's one area that I felt that I needed to try help or mitigate. And I think law or mediation gives me that um, ability to do so, and so forth.
Somebody's asking, amidst the pandemic, how exactly have you been able to still continue with your impact? And have you been able to even do that?
Well, I think technology is such a nebulous concept. There are people who would, who do not like the concept of technology. But I think technology is a beautiful thing. And one way, we have been able to do what we do has been through technology, where we have sessions, via a WhatsApp. For instance, I have done mediation through WhatsApp, and both parties, felt that their conflict was resolved effectively, and their relations, was restored.
Interesting. What's the one word that you can tell an African uh, being right now who's going through so much, but they're wondering what's the next step for me? What is the word of encouragement you can give to somebody right now?
Well, I'll say that this is the finest time to be an African or to be a human being because of all that is happening, whether it's courtesy of knowledge, whether it's courtesy of, the technological revolution that keeps on happening, on an everyday basis. But I think most importantly, um, we are beginning to realize our potential. And I would tell, that young man that there is so much potential in you that needs to be actualized. So what you need right now, are the right tools, and people are the right tools. You need to connect with somebody because people are gifts. The greatest resource, we have as a continent has got to be, our sheer numbers and our human capital.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I would like to read a bit of your bio, if you may allow me, please.
Thank
And
you.
it's very interesting just looking at what you've done and who you are. And I'm also reading it out for the people who are still asking more about you. So, Victor Baba Emmanuel Aligo is a James Weinstein Fellow 2020, a lawyer, come mediator, and above all, a kingdom functionary. Currently the HOD, that's head of Department of Men's Ministry at Reconciliation Center, an integrated community of young believers in active service to the living transcendent God. Victor Baba is a thought leader and enthusiast of the SDGs within the framework of communities. He's the founder of Community Legal Center, a paralegal that provides paralegal services, including but not limited to legal opinions, legal links, and media to refugees and underserved communities. I mean, just just going through that, even in the list, so somebody is actually asking, how exactly do you manage to do all this in one place?
Wow. Well, I think we all it has to be said that we all have 24 hours. Yeah. So I try not to sleep so much so that I can have much time to do all the things that I do. I'm actually looking for a person, who has got more than 24 hours so that I can buy some. So I think it comes down to, it comes down to knowing your purpose and knowing your mission. And I think that's what fuels me. The fact that, I can be a salt to my world. That, fuels me and it consumes me because service is such a great thing.
Somebody is actually asking, Victor, what's your perspective in regard to the proposal for dissolution of parliament by CJ Maraga, as given yesterday in regard to the parliament actually failing on the two-thirds gender rule constitution, according to the constitution of Kenya? What could be your perspective in regard to that? I think you are also at a place where you can see it inside, you understand the legality of it, but you can also see it as an outsider, just with you not being within the politics itself. What are your thoughts about that, sir?
Wow. I try as much as possible, not to be close to politics, but now that you've brought it up, I think as a nation, I think Kenya as a nation that subscribes to the principles of constitutionalism, the rule of law, and the idea that we are all persons that are under the law. I think the constitution is clear enough. It couldn't be any more clear. The law requires that once the president of the Supreme Court, who happens to be the Chief Justice, has rendered his advisory to the president, he has no provision to act. He has no provision to act otherwise to the opinion that has been rendered by the president of the Supreme Court, who is the Chief Justice. But that said and done, I think it's time, that as a nation, we critically looked into the matter of gender parity or gender equality, if you wish. Countries like Rwanda, South Africa are doing well in terms of implementing gender equality or gender parity, if you wish, in their decision making organs. And I think Parliament is a critical decision making organ that we need to have a perspective of the other gender as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting. And how do you think we'll tackle this? Because I mean, already there's a there's a lot of conflict of interest, but not only conflict of interest, there's also a lot of matters to actually consider, even in regard to citizenship. How exactly would you advise us as citizens, and even as how do I say this, patriots of Kenya, as citizens, how exactly would you advise us to navigate these waters?
Wow. One of the interesting things about the 2010 Constitution is that it enshrines and espouses, the office of the citizen.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard,
yes.
In that regard, the citizen becomes a co-governor with the governor, with the president, or whoever is occupying a public office. And I think, through public participation, involvement, we can turn around, the destiny of this nation. And therefore, I would speak to every citizen, to rise up to the office of the citizen, which entails, putting the government on its toes. According to the Constitution, Article 10, which encompasses and envisages, a national values that are binding on perspective of whether you are in public service or whether you are a citizen or you are in private sector. We are all required to defend, promote, and further the provisions of the Constitution. So it's time.
Okay.
I think Kenyans needed to take a few steps back and look, because the greatest benefits of the constitution has got to be the fact that you have an empowered citizen. You have the office of the citizen, and you have tools to discharge, duties of the office of the citizen.
Thank you for that. Actually, so somebody is already asking, how exactly do we participate as a citizenship? I mean, and from my perspective, I would say we've seen a lot of injustices going on, from police brutality to actually complete disregard of the constitution by some of our legislators. How exactly would you advise citizenship action or citizen action? What, especially also from a legal standpoint, what are the rights that people have in regard to being activists or participating in citizen action or picketing, etc. What are the ways and manners that actually the citizenship of Kenya and even Africa in general can participate in regarding to making sure that their leaders do the work that they're meant to do?
From a bigger picture, as I alluded to earlier on, the greatest capital that a nation or we as a continent enjoy would be, our sheer numbers, as a young generation or the young demography, across the world. And I am a firm believer in the practice of, non-violence civil obedience. That's one platform that the Constitution has spoken, volumes about. So one way I would appeal to every citizen, it would be to take charge of that right. The fact that we can mobilize, and engage into activism, whether it's through the courts or out of the courts. These are all, platforms that every citizen has got to use. So the court as well is a good, it's a good forum, where we can address some of conflicts that we see have been from one generation to another generation, and so on and so forth. I think we all need to wake up and realize, our full potential.
Actually, now
Or
that
even
you've
how
talked
we
about the
vote,
court,
for instance. For instance,
yes,
how we vote.
very true. Somebody's actually already saying, but the courts are too expensive. How exactly do we engage in that?
Well, there are civil actors. There are civil organizations, that try as much as possible, to hold the government accountable, whether on human rights, abuses, whether on good governance, and so on and so forth. So those are, these are all opportunities that we can really look up to and capitalize on.
Okay. Victor, before we wrap up, because we're about to wrap up, we're about to finish this session. Somebody is actually asking, where exactly do you see Africa going? And how would you advise the young people to actually flow with it? Where exactly do you see Africa going? And how exactly can the youth be a part of it?
I've been on the leading front of saying that, the 21st century has, to a larger extent, been predominantly taken by, we are seeing, Asian countries rising on all fronts and so on and so forth. So I do believe that, the next decade belongs to Africa. So as Africa, we have a brighter future. Africa is the next place, to be. And I feel, these are all opportunities that we can, capitalize on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor. As we finish this up, I would like to read the last half of your bio. Please bear with me as I get it in a few minutes.
No worries, no worries.
And thank you so much, Victor. Where is the organization located?
We are based in Zimmerman Ward, that's Roysambu constituency, Nairobi, Nairobi metropolitan city.
And you actually have 4 names: Victor, Baba, Emmanuel, Aligo. Which one should people use for you?
Well, Victor Baba is my dad. And over time, I have picked it as my names because people tell me that, there is a striking resemblance between myself and my dad. So one will call me Victor Baba, but my names or my true name, if you like, is Emmanuel Aligo.
Mhm. Interesting. I won't even say what I know you as, so it's okay. It's not for here.
Wow.
Additionally, and now about you. Additionally, he is affiliated to a host of organizations in different capacities. He believes the true story of Africa has not been told to the end, and his family convicted that through the Holy Spirit, men and women will arise to tell the full story of Africa. And Victor, maybe just to confirm from you, what exactly do you think might be the full story of Africa?
Um, the true story of Africa is a continent where we can have rich people, where we have a rich continent and rich people. Mandela is on record of saying that Africa is a rich continent but poor people. That to me
Mhm.
sounds like it's an oxymoron. Because how can you have um, a relatively good, how can you have a rich place and poor people? In the scripture, just to take you to the scriptures, we are told of the story of a man, a beggar who is at the beautiful gate, yet he is a beggar. I think that's a metaphor that speaks to the condition of Africa. And I feel that it's time that young people and the leadership of the African continent rose up to the occasion or stepped up to the plate. Because if we are a rich continent but with poor people, then it means that there is a gap that we are yet to figure it out. And as soon as possible we can figure it out, then we can be a rich continent with rich people, culturally, socio-economically, and in terms of our cultural practices and so on and so forth. So that's the Africa that I envision, an Africa that is a rich continent and with rich people, culturally speaking, in terms of socio-economical factors, in terms of our leadership and so on and so forth. That's the Africa that I envision and see.
Interesting. Somebody's actually asking, and I think I'll make this nearly the last question. What exactly is a JAMS fellow? What exactly is a Jams Weinstein fellow, and how do you get there?
It's a premier mediation organization in the United States, and there are a number of ways that you can become a fellow. So you can be nominated, or you can as well make an application to the organization. They have
Mhm.
fellows, every other year.
Mhm. And what manner of fellows do they deal with? Do you have to be in a certain industry? Is it specific to industry or work? What exactly is it about?
Well, the catchment areas revolve around um, number one, you being a legal practitioner, and number two, you being a practitioner of alternative dispute resolution. Our previous fellows have been, great judges. Our previous fellows have been a leadership, in other industries. For instance, the banking industry, but they practice, alternative dispute resolution. And therefore, I would say that the heart and soul of James Weinstein is this alternative dispute resolution.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time with us. And as we wrap up, I would just like to tell everybody, please remember, courtesy of Let's Create Africa, get a 10% credit discount when you sign up to Restream using the link below. We've just put the link actually on our subtitle. So please sign up and may you actually enjoy multicasting and multi-streaming. Today we had Victor Baba Emmanuel Ligo, a James Weinstein Fellow, 2020, a lawyer come mediator, and above all, a kingdom functionary, currently the HOD of Men's Ministry at Reconciliation Center. Victor, thank you so much. It's been an honor to finally get to interview you. It's been so long since I've been waiting for this moment, Yani. So it's
Namaste.
very interesting. It's very interesting to see somebody my age having achieved so much, and I'm sure there are many Africans out there looking up at you and just thinking this is actually the path I want to follow. So please remember, as also always, let's create Africa. This is what we are about: inspiring, informing, and highlighting change makers in Africa. Guys, take care until the next time, which is next week. Take care. God bless.
Thank you so much, sir. God bless you. Thank you for having me.
Karibu san. Karibu.
Asante.